Hello, chapter 11. Kind of interesting. Who drew these cartoons? I'm betting it was somebody from Japan. You can see that the young ladies don't have noses. Well, they barely have noses. They have nostrils. And all their mouths are the same with big expressive eyes. Even the dog has big expressive eyes. Among the Padong in the Thai mountains, women elongate their necks by several inches. We're talking about what physical attractiveness is. Obviously, that's it right there. So they elongate their necks by several inches by inserting a number of brass rings around their necks as they grow up. And as you can see, the longer the neck, the more attractive they are. And for the longest time, they thought that they were elongating their necks. Actually, they're not. They're depressing their clavicles and they're depressing their rib cages, as you can see. So they're not really stretching their, well, they are stretching the vertebra to some extent. Among the Mursi in Ethiopia, women stretch their lower lip by inserting progressively larger ceramic discs in a hole that has been cut through the lip, and that makes them, of course, far more attractive with large lower lips. Mentawai, women from Indonesia file their teeth into sharp points so they have smiles that are not that different from a shark's smile. Pointed teeth. Ainu women of northern Japan often tattoo their faces in what looks like a mustache around their lips. These are the Ainu. Western women darken their eyelashes with mascara, trim their eyebrows, and paint their lips with lipstick. That's me, and that is one of my former students at Ashford. This is in 2016, just before we stopped teaching. She was one of my students. She was a junior, I think. Anyway, she said that she wanted to be my fourth wife. That never happened. She's happily married to somebody in Chicago and has two young boys. And you can see what she did to her with her face, her eyebrows, her eyes, her lips, and she put studs in her cheeks to give her dimples, to give her dimples. Of course, I've got natural dimples, but she had to make her own. She's Hispanic, and when she got married to a Hispanic gentleman from Chicago, and she complained about her nose. Personally, I don't see that her nose is any bigger than mine. It's bigger than hers, but it's not that well anyway. She complained how big her nose was, which I thought was a little weird. Anyway, what kinds of faces are thought to be attractive? There seems to be a striking agreement around the world. Skin that looks free of blemishes, blotches, sores, and rashes is viewed as more attractive than skin that does not. So clean, fresh skin. People care so much about their skin because people tend to be attracted to healthy mates who would likely produce healthy offspring that would survive. So the healthier the skin, the healthier the individual. And I don't remember who this is. But there for a while, celebrities were taking their picture pregnant and naked. Naked and pregnant, I guess. People usually don't think about selecting healthy mates, but their unconscious preferences for traits that are associated with health have been guided by natural selection. Responding to the apparent health of skin could thus be a useful heuristic for sizing up the health of one's potential mate in the ancestral environment. And of course, this is more attractive than this, theoretically. A second characteristic that appears to be universally viewed as attractive is bilateral symmetry. we're most attracted to people whose left sides of their faces and bodies look identical to their right sides. And the reality is that your face is put together in two halves. It's, as you evolve inside the womb, the two halves of your face develop and fuse together, and you can tell this if you stick your tongue up under your upper lip. You can feel that there's a piece of skin there, and that piece of skin is what gives you the cleft in your upper lip. But that's because your face was formed in two halves and it came together. Now, what does that mean? That if you're not bilaterally symmetrical, what does that mean? That means that during part of your gestation, while you were being formed, um, your your mother either didn't eat as well at one point as at another as at another point. So it's bilateral symmetry is what people are looking for. The more bilaterally symmetrical your face is, the more attractive you are considered to be. So if we look at her, we can see that we have bilateral symmetry. Her eyes are the same size, her eyebrows, of course, and her lips. Same thing here, same thing here. Oh, that's sad, not there. Anyway, okay. Bilateral symmetry is an indicator of developmental stability. Given ideal growing conditions, an organism's right and left sides will develop identically. And this is Brad Pitt. This is, what's her name? Hilton, Paris Hilton. Anyway, this is what they look like. This is if you put the two left sides together, this is what it looks like. If you put the two right sides together, she looks a little bit different, but she looks primarily the same. Brad Pitt, not so much. His left symmetry is not, his right symmetry is better than his, well, anyway. Maybe men aren't as symmetrical. There is evidence that people prefer symmetrical faces more than asymmetrical ones, and it has been found in all cultures studied. The preference for symmetry is even stronger in hunting-gathering populations, such as the Hadza of Tanzania. And these are the Hadza of Tanzania, always looking for a symmetrical face. The third characteristic of attractive faces is that they tend to be average. Facial features that are close to average in size and in configuration are perceived as most attractive. So we're not looking for big noses, we're looking for, well, anyway, we're looking for average faces. Men tend to prefer youthful features in women, a characteristic called neoteny. And this is an old idea, neoteny. You need to look young, as confusing as that is. Women prefer some masculine features in men. This is, I can't remember what these things are called. Masculine features, that's one of the reasons that men are growing beards, because that is a masculine feature. It also makes if they have any problems, if their chins aren't the right shape, or if they have a double chin or whatever, if they grow a beard, you can't see any problems that they have. Man bun, that's what that's called. Anyway. People with average size features are less likely to have a genetic abnormalities that people with deviant features have. Humans can quickly process something that resembles a prototype, and quick processing is associated with good feelings and feelings of attraction. And therefore, if somebody looks average, then we can process that a lot faster than if somebody has a big nose, has a wide mouth, has an odd-looking chin. And of course, these are the women from different places: Uzbekistan, Peru, Samoa, African American, Japanese, Indian, Uzbek, Sweden, Ethiopia, and here are the men African American, Uzbek, white American, China, Italy, Hungary, Philippines, and Czech Republic. When researchers started mixing the facial features of different racial groups, they discovered that people found the results more attractive than the pure racial groups. The opposite sex found the faces of the Eurasian and biracial faces most attractive of all. Halle Berry, considered one of the most beautiful women in the world, is half Italian and half African American, and I don't remember. She's of Asian and European descent. Yeah, I put in Eurasian, and that's what I got. And here's two others. This guy's in SWAT, and this is Keanu Reeves. Keanu Reeves is Portuguese and Jewish, and he's white and he's European American and African American. I don't remember his name. I apologize. It is not certain why multiracial faces are perceived as attractive. One account is that people should be attracted to genetic diversity as a marker of healthy genes. Multiracial represents the most average of all the faces the individual has encountered in their lives. And that's maybe one of the reasons why multiracial is considered so attractive. The attractiveness of average features does not seem to generalize well to perceptions of bodies. It does not seem to be true that people are most attracted to those of average weight, height, and muscle mass, breast, and hips. Okay. Perfect female body according to women. Yeah, and it's really kind of interesting because men think that that women like one thing, and women actually like something different. And it's the same way with women, and women think that men are looking for something, but they're looking for something totally different. And this is what women think that that men are looking for. They're looking for a little girl shape, skinny, prepubescent, and they're actually looking for something else, more luscious, I guess. And the same way with men. Men think that women are, this is what women are actually looking for. This is what men think that women are attracted to, a much larger person with bigger muscles. But not so much. The kinds of bodies that tend to be seen as most attractive are often those that depart considerably from the average. And of course, this is what women are looking for. This is what men think women are looking for. In West Africa, the term fat is often viewed as complimentary, indicating strength and beauty. This is in West Africa. Within the United States, African Americans have heavier ideal body weights than European Americans and feel less social pressure toward thinness. Another aspect of interpersonal attraction is the propinquity effect. People are more likely to become friends with people with whom they frequently interact. So the closer you are to somebody physically, the more likely that you will be attracted to them. Researchers looked at the friendship patterns that developed in a police academy. The simple fact of who stood next to whom was more important in influencing police recruits' selection of friends than their personalities, backgrounds, and religious beliefs. So it's who you were standing next to. Propinquity effect. One reason that the propinquity effect works is because of a phenomenon known as the mere exposure effect. The more we are exposed to a stimulus, the more that we are attracted to it. This has been shown to be true for attraction to other people, foreign words, music, and the variety of inanimate stimuli. Once upon a time in the United States, there were no tape players. They had radio, we had record players, but if you wanted to listen to music and you were out in your car, you had to turn on the radio, and you heard whatever was on the radio. So if you liked popular music, you got to hear the top 40 over and over and over and over again. And so what happened was that the more you heard a song, the more likely that you were willing to listen to that song because it was all that was on the radio. You could always change channels, but if you were looking for a specific song, you probably would only find it once or twice an hour. And that's the way it worked. That's why kids were carrying around transistor radios and whatnot. And then, of course, eventually we got tape players, cassette. It, the 8-track didn't work, but cassettes worked, and of course you could make your own music or record your own music and listen to whatever songs you wanted to. But there for the longest time, and of course you had to listen to whatever was on the radio. There weren't that many stations. Your music, if you were into some strange music, the only way you were going to be able to listen to it was on a record, a 33 and a third record, or a 45, which was just two songs, one on one side, one on the other. Anyway, that showed you what the mere exposure effect. You guys don't have a clue what this is because you would listen to the same songs over and over again. You have favorite music that you'll always listen to, and you don't have to listen to the music you don't like. The mere exposure effect appears to be a cultural universal. Japanese and Americans appear to be equally likely to come to like those people with whom they interact most frequently. People tend to be attracted to those who are most like themselves, and this is known as similarity attraction effect. Much research has shown that people are more likely to view someone as attractive either as a potential friend or romantic partner if both are similar in their attitudes, economic background, personality, religion, social background, and activities. Now, the weird thing is, if you look at couples, very frequently they have exactly the same color hair. As weird as that seems. Research that sought to determine whether North Americans or Japanese like similar or dissimilar strangers showed that North Americans had a stronger attraction to similar strangers than the Japanese. In some studies, Japanese show a similarity attraction effect as well, but it is consistently weaker than the North American effect. Okay, so what are we talking about here? North Americans like people that are like them more than the Japanese. Now remember, we already talked about this. The 98% of the people in Japan are Japanese, are ethnically Japanese. So of course they're not going to. Of course it's going to be different because people in the United States, lots of different races and ethnicities in the United States. So well, anyway. And Japan has been there for what, thousands of years. Well, anyway, that's not very good research, I'm afraid. Researchers have discovered that most frequent topic of conversation is gossip about other people. Studies that track people's happiness over time find that their happiest times are when they are with others. People's most emotionally wrenching experiences involve the breakup of relationships and the death of loved ones. And my wife is the head librarian at the local library. The library is really tiny. It only has like 7,000 volumes. But she's trying to figure out what people in town like. And so she looked at all the books that they have ordered in the past, and one romance novels is one of them, and so she brought one home this weekend. And of course, that's all these romance novels are about. They're about breakups and well, not death, of course, but mostly relationships and breakups. And the fact that these two people belong together is really kind of interesting. Anyway, we'll see how that works out. So I was quizzing her all weekend about Karen and Rand because they were trying to have trying to create a relationship, and they were getting their parents were getting involved. It was really kind of interesting. Communal sharing, the members of a group emphasize their common identity rather than consider their idiosyncrasies. That's known as communal sharing. In communal sharing, every person is treated the same. Each has the identical rights and privileges as every other member of their group. The ideal in communal sharing is equality among all the members of the group. And we see this on teams, even when the teams are have both men and women, people from different races and ethnicities. Communal sharing, somebody's on your team, they are part of your friend group, and you try to protect them. Same thing happens in military units. It really doesn't matter whether somebody's male or female, black, white, Hispanic, native. It really doesn't make any difference. That person is the person that protects you and you protect, and that's known as communal sharing. And everybody's the same. Authority ranking involves the inequality of relationships that people share. Within authority ranking relationships, people are linearly ordered along a hierarchical social dimension. And just to talk about communal sharing just a little bit more, we've been having problems with sexual assaults in the military. This has been going on in the Coast Guard. It went on in the Coast Guard, the Navy, the Army was having problems with it. The Air Force was having problems with it. The Marines don't have that many females in their ranks, but it was also a problem in the Marines. One of the things that we noticed was that people were being assaulted, sexually assaulted. Females were being sexually assaulted when they first arrived at a unit. As soon as they became part of the group, then the other members of the group started protecting them, but they had to become part of the group before that happened, and that's just one of the realities of communal sharing is that you have to become part of the group, and it's interesting that that is the way it works. People with higher ranking have prestige and privileges that those with lower ranking do not. Subordinates are often entitled to receive protection and care from those above. The lower ranked members earn less money, are allowed fewer privileges, and are obliged to follow the orders of those above them. Asymmetry underlies all authority ranked relationships. Another basic relational structure is equality matching, based on the idea of balance and reciprocity. People keep track of what is exchanged in equivalent terms. Reciprocity has to do with equality between two things. When I was I got a teaching license from Indiana, and so if I went to Kansas, Kansas had a reciprocity agreement with Indiana that they would accept their teaching license without forcing people to take any extra classes or anything like that. That's reciprocity. That's the idea of reciprocity. While equality matching is probably the least familiar relational structure in Westerners, it is quite common in many cultures around the world. For example, exchanging Christmas cards is equality matching. Taking turns is equality matching. Exchanging dinner invitations is equality matching. And carpooling. I drive this week, you drive next week. Carpooling. Equality matching. Market pricing is another type of relational structure. All features and benefits that are exchanged can be reduced to a single underlying dimension. Usually it's money. People expect to ultimately receive something equivalent to what they have given. People normally feel some degree of freedom to move openly between relationships, and this is known as relational mobility. Some people have high relational mobility. They feel they aren't bound by old relationships and are able to start new ones at will. Um, and this is really kind of interesting because attractive people have this concept of relational mobility. They feel that they can move back and forth because attractiveness is a commodity. And if you're not attractive, you don't feel like that should be the case. But if you are attractive, you feel that you should be able to move back and forth. And that was part of what was going on in the Big Bang Theory. Of course, Penny was very attractive, and therefore she felt like she should have relational mobility. But Leonard, of course, was a nerdy guy, so he didn't have the relational mobility that she did. Now, the interesting thing was, as long as Penny was dating men that also had high relational mobility, their relationships weren't permanent at all. She kind of bounced from one guy to the other. And of course, she didn't settle down until she married Leonard in that television show. Other people feel more restricted in their relationships. They have low relational mobility. Their commitments and obligations to their old relationships are so great that they are controlled by them and they don't feel the freedom to form new relationships. They view relationships as stable and lifelong that provide both benefits and costs in order to maintain them. And of course, this is what happened with me with my first marriage. Of course, I got married in 1969. Yeah, I got married in 1969. So things were a little bit different back then. The divorce, for one thing, was almost impossible until the 1970s. Thank goodness, because my wife was gone. Otherwise, I'd still be married to somebody that was, living with somebody else. That's not good. Relationships in low relational mobility situations are not always positive. Some people really don't get along with each other. If it is not an option to decide that they will not engage with one another, they will continue to have a relationship, though it might be fraught with negative feelings. And this is very often what happens with your in-laws. Now, I've had problems with my in-laws. I've been married 3 times, and I have never had in-laws that liked me, as weird as that is. I'm not exactly sure why. I'm not that attractive. Maybe that has something to do with it. I'm short. Maybe that has something to do with it. I don't know. It's really hard to say. But especially my mother-in-law from my current marriage, my wife's not here, so I can say this. My mother-in-law thought that I was stealing her because we broke federal law by getting married. She was an officer and I was enlisted, and that's against the UCMJ. Article 37 of the UCMJ says that officers and enlisted personnel cannot date. In order to get married, you have to date first. So she thought that I was just trying to marry a meal ticket. I was a higher rank. I was a E5. She was a O1, I think. Maybe she was an O2. Anyway, she thought I was trying to steal a meal ticket, and she hated me till the day she died. So there you go. The average American adult reports having a network of 20.76 friends. The average adult in Hong Kong has a network of 13.23 friends. The average German adult has a network of 12.75 friends. A common reaction heard among many international people after their first encounters with Americans is how friendly they seem. Compared with people from other cultures, Americans have a rather casual attitude toward forming friendships. In collectivistic contexts, an important aspect of friendship is to provide each other with advice, and this advice is frequently offered regardless of whether one's friends wants to receive it or not. Unsolicited advice is common in a variety of collectivistic cultures, Turkey and Colombia, for example. It seems to be especially prevalent in Russia. That's what I was telling you. The Russians are fairly blunt. They think that you're doing something stupid, they'll come up and tell you that you're doing something stupid. According to BBC journalist James Rogers, you can't really say mind your own business in Russian. You can translate the phrase literally, but the concept is not well understood. And this is James Rogers. He's not a Russian, by the way. He looks Russian, kind of. A study by Chintsova, Dutton, and Vaughn in 2012, looking at unsolicited advice among American and Russians, found that Russians were twice as likely to have given unsolicited advice. The amount of advice given by Americans was more likely to be contingent on whether it was requested. The amount of advice given by Russians was unaffected by whether or not it was requested. In Russia, a big part of friendship seems to be to let your friends know how you think they should be leading their lives differently. That has to do with friendship. Now, it's really kind of interesting because all these guys have red hair, and of course, there's only three of them. Well, maybe there's only two of them. No, there's three of them. These three people, they all have red hair. There's an area in Russia that where everybody's redheaded. It's really kind of strange. There's a part of Ireland has a lot of redheads in it. Scotland has a lot of redheads in it. But there's a section of Russia where there are people with red hair. Lots of people with red hair. When Ghanaians and Americans were asked whether having a lot of friends was good, Ghanaians said that it was foolish to have lots of friends. Friendship to Ghanaians involves obligations, both financial and social. Thus, too many friends could make you a pauper with no control over your life, because if they asked you to go help them move, you had to go help them move. Research conducted with Westerners has shown that physically attractive people have a number of more positive life outcomes than those that are less physically attractive. And these outcomes extend across a broad array of domains in ways that may seem patently unfair. This is America Ferraro. And that's her Ugly Betty. And that's what she actually looks like. Essays that are believed to have been written by an attractive author are evaluated more positively than ones believed to have been written by less attractive authors. And this is really kind of interesting because I have friends that write books. And if you ask them, they'll say, I had a photo shoot the other day, and they wanted me to look different than I actually look. What they wanted them to do was look attractive. And if they didn't look attractive, potentially their books wouldn't sell as well. Ugly authors do not sell books, as weird as that may seem. And of course, this is another actress. She's a character actress, and I can't remember her name. Attractive politicians get more votes than unattractive ones. And of course, Hillary Clinton had 3 million more votes than Donald Trump in 2016. I don't know if Joe Biden's more attractive than Donald Trump, but hey. He got 8 million more votes. We'll see about Kamala Harris, who is obviously more attractive than Donald Trump. Attractive children are rated as smarter and better behaved by their teachers, as weird as that may seem. Attractive MBA grads earn more money than less attractive MBA grads. And you can see this lady's got more chords than this lady does. I wonder if it's because she's tall, blonde, and has a symmetrical face, an average symmetrical face. Attractive criminals get lighter sentences than less attractive criminals. From an early age, we learn that attractive people have more desirable characteristics than unattractive ones, such as when we learn of Cinderella's kindness and beauty in contrast to her evil and ugly stepsisters. Some people refer to this as the tyranny of the beautiful, and it has been explained by our ability to discern beauty almost immediately after meeting someone. we will often assume that they have other positive features as well, and this is known as the halo effect. This is Audie Murphy, and this is, I can't remember his name, but he was a criminal in California, and he had his picture taken, and it was put online, and women just went crazy when they saw his face. And then he became a fashion model, as weird as that may seem. Now, these are all gang tattoos that he has on him, but he is a model now. Jeremy Meeks, that's his name. And this is Audie Murphy, the baby-faced assassin. Audie Murphy was the most decorated American soldier of World War II. And he's not very tall. He's only like 5'2", 5'3", but he won the Congressional Medal of Honor, and these are all the medals that he won as an American soldier. Fairly attractive individual. Is that why he got so many medals? Well, he was also a cold-blooded soldier that did a good job of killing the enemy. This is Jonathan Cahill from the United Kingdom. And they published his picture, and because he was robbing people, and they wanted people to be aware of who he was. And this was the picture that they published. And women in England just went crazy. They were saying, please, Jonathan, come in and rob my place. You can rob my place anytime. This is the second picture they took after they caught him and arrested him. Anyway, it was a strange phenomenon. The women of England wanted to have something to do with Jonathan Cahill. People from Ghana and the United States were asked whether they were happy with their lives. You know, so this is really weird. I'm not talking about Audie Murphy. Audie Murphy became an actor, and eventually he died at age 50 in an airplane crash. But while he was an actor, you know, how can somebody who's a soldier become an actor? You know, how does that work? Well, you know, he was an attractive fella. But this is weird. This guy was a criminal, and they published his picture, and everybody went crazy over his eyes. The fact that he had light-colored eyes, pale eyes, and the Jonathan Cahill thing was kind of weird too. Women of England want Jonathan Cahill. He's in prison, and Meeks is traveling the world as a underwear model. People from Ghana and the United States were asked whether they were happy with their lives. Attractive Americans were more satisfied with their lives than unattractive ones. Attractive Ghanaians were less satisfied with their lives than unattractive Ghanaians. Beauty is a commodity in the United States, but it is not in Ghana. So it doesn't really matter what you look like in Ghana. Anyway, in the United States, if you're pretty, then you can sell it. You can sell yourself. In every aspect. I mean, we just saw this. Where was it? Where's the kids? There they are. Yeah. You can sell yourself in the United States if you're attractive, as weird as that is. And if you're an unattractive person that gets arrested, you might as well just run and jump into the cell and throw the key away if you're unattractive. If you're attractive, you can get out and become a underwear model if you're lucky. Oishi and colleagues in 2009 studied American college students, comparing those who had lived in one place and those who had moved multiple times. Now, this is really important because when we were in the military, unfortunately, my kids traveled. Well, they traveled with us, of course, but they had to move a number of times. The movers had more conditional loyalty. In other words, yeah. So my daughter is a Cowboys fan. It's a Dallas Cowboys fan because we lived in Texas for a while. My son is a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, not because we lived in Pennsylvania, but because Pittsburgh, the Steel Curtain, they won several Super Bowls while he was deciding what he wanted to, what fan loyalty he wanted. They had more Facebook friends on campus, and they recognized their personality traits as part of their identity. They preferred chain stores. This is people that moved around a lot. Why do they prefer chain stores? Because they know what's there. They had to work with their personalities. Their personalities became their identity. They couldn't rely on their families to get them anywhere because nobody knew their families. So they had to use their own personalities. And this worked for my son when he was working in California because he had a Midwestern personality, and people liked that. The fact that you could believe what he said. You know, a lot of people in California are just trying to get ahead, but he was a bartender, and people liked him, and they tipped him really well. Cities that tend to have a great deal of mobility, San Diego, Los Angeles, Atlanta, have more fair weather sports fans, higher crime rates with less community action, more large national chain stores. This itinerant lifestyle may make the United States culture different from any place else. Okay, because people move around so much. In many Latin American cultures, people place an emphasis on maintaining harmonious relationships and on making expressive displays of graciousness, hospitality, and personal harmony. And this is known as simpatico. So Hispanic people have what is referred to as simpatico. That's really kind of interesting because yesterday my grandson was playing in a soccer tournament, and his team was playing against a Hispanic team, and the Hispanic team just cleaned the field with them. But they were so nice. They were really, really nice, and their fans were really, really nice. Sometimes and people get emotional during these things, but they were really nice people. Sometimes it gets ugly. I mean, sometimes it really gets ugly, but hardly ever with Hispanic fans, Hispanic parents, and Hispanic kids. Simpatico. Latin Americans view their self concepts to be more characterized by traits that reflect simpatico, such as easygoing, respectful, courteous, and agreeable. Latin Americans also expect interactions with others to be dominated by positive social behaviors and to have fewer negative social behaviors compared with the expectations of European Americans. Latin Americans show a clear preference for working in groups in which people strive to maintain a warm and hospitable atmosphere. The European Americans, especially Protestants, show a clear preference for staying focused on the task at hand. Latin Americans act in more sociable ways than European Americans, and sampling studies find that they spend a greater proportion of their time socializing with others. And this is a Puerto Rican parade in New York City. Humans require such an extended period of costly protective care and socialization that they fare best when they have two parents devoted to providing resources and socializing them. In the ancestral environment, it was likely that parents who did not feel especially strong love for their children were less likely to have their children survive the tenuous circumstances of subsistence lifestyle. And it wasn't, this doesn't go back all that far. If you look at the turn of the 20th century, 1/3 of all the babies that were born died before they were 10. This is in 1900. Now it's, of course, our life expectancy is much longer. Just because you're born, there were a lot of childhood illnesses. Of course, we've taken care of that with vaccinations and whatnot. Everybody, a lot of people live. In the old days, not so much. Some strong incentives were needed to keep the parents together so they would both remain to support the children. According to the reasoning, romantic love was selected as the glue that keeps couples together. Those people who did not develop feelings of love for their partners would have been less likely to stay with them and would have ended up having fewer surviving offspring than those who felt strong feelings of love. One review of the ethnographies of 166 cultures found clear evidence of romantic love in 89% of them. Historically, the majority of marriages around the world have been arranged by families rather than by the couples themselves. How I Met Your Mother, I met her on our wedding day. Looking at 186 societies, researchers found that Western strategies in finding an appropriate spouse was only seen among 31% of the men and 8% of the women. In a study by Levine and colleagues in 1995, college students from several countries were asked this question: if a man or woman had all the qualities you desired, would you marry this person if you were not in love with them? That's the question. If they had everything that you're looking for, would you marry them even if you weren't in love with them? Half the students from India and Pakistan said they would marry the person, and 1/4 more were undecided. This was in India and Pakistan, where arranged marriages are very common. So they would marry the person if they had all the quality. Half of the people that they queried would marry that person, despite the fact that they were in love with them. Over 80% of Americans, Britons, Australians, and Latin Americans said they would not, and only a small percentage, less than 5%, of these countries said they would. The identical question was posed to American college students in 1967, the year I graduated from high school. Now, I've already told you that I got married the first time in 1969, so this was right after this survey was done. Are you ready for this? 65% of the men, but only 24% of the women said they would not marry someone they did not love. That means 76% of the women would marry somebody that they didn't love if they had all the qualities they wanted. So my first wife may have married me just because I had all the qualities she was looking for, and she didn't really love me. But men, of course, we're not real bright. Only 35% of us would. Anyway. So my first marriage was that kind of a mistake, I guess. The likelihood of a culture favoring arranged marriage is not determined randomly. It appears to relate to the dominant kind of family structure in the culture. And this is, of course, Donald Trump with Flowers. No, that's not her name. I can't remember. Anyway, she was his second wife. Now he's married to Melania. I can't think of her name. Good in 1959 proposed that romantic love would become more important in cultures as the strength of extended family ties became weaker. The powerful feelings of romantic love could be somewhat irrelevant or even problematic for marriages in cultures with strong extended family ties. The Western ideal of romantic love, characterized by intense feelings and mutual absorption, could be disruptive in cultures with large kin networks, because such feelings can interfere with people's abilities to respect the wishes of their family members. An analysis of data from 117 non-industrialized societies found clear support for Good's hypothesis. Marriages based on love were more likely in cultures with nuclear family structures than they were in cultures with extended families. Many arranged marriages start out with no feelings of love between the couple. However, in time, the husband and wife begin to develop strong feelings for one another. A good analogy is getting a pet, developing strong feelings for the animal the longer you have it. People in arranged marriages describe their experiences in a similar manner. The individual approaches the person as his or her new spouse with the expectation of eventually falling in love. With time, they usually do. With the abysmal failure rate of Western marriages, the assumption that arranged marriages are miserable is probably inaccurate. Most people in countries where arranged marriages are prevalent view arranged marriages as more likely to succeed than romantic marriages. A survey among adults living in various urban centers in India found that 74% of the men and women believed that arranged marriages were more likely to succeed than love marriages. There is also evidence that those in arranged marriages are at least as satisfied with their marriages as those in love marriages. Turkish couples in arranged marriages have been found to be as much in love with their partners as couples in love marriages. Members of the Unification Church participated in mass arranged marriages where partners were chosen in ceremonies that involved thousands of men and women. Looking at marriages after 3 years, researchers found a similar rate of satisfaction between these couples and the general public. And this is one of those mass weddings. These people didn't know each other until they stepped into the auditorium. Men in Japanese arranged marriages were found to be more satisfying than those in love marriages. This is a study from 1967. Men in Chinese arranged marriages were as satisfied as those in love marriages. So men are happy with marriages. However, women in Japanese arranged marriages were found to be less satisfied in arranged than love marriages. Now, these are both male-dominated societies, Japan and China. Women in Chinese arranged marriages were found to be less satisfied in their marriages than love marriages. This suggests that the costs of arranged marriages are borne largely by women in the Japanese and Chinese cultures. And of course, this has to do with physical abuse. A study by Gupta and Singh in 1982 compared marital satisfaction between Indian couples in arranged and love marriages. In the initial years of marriage, those in love marriages professed more love than those in arranged marriages. Over time, it was those in arranged marriages who reported having the most love. This pattern held true for both men and women. The study was replicated with similar results. While these results may seem counterintuitive, Heine explains them using an interview with Japanese colleagues who had been in an arranged marriage for 30 years. And this is Heine. This is what he looks like. Now, if you remember, I think I told you this. Heine is married to a Japanese woman. He went over. He's Canadian. He's from Vancouver, and he went over to Japan to teach English. And he fell in love and married a Japanese woman. So that's one of the reasons why he talks so much about the European Canadians and East Asians. There's Heine again. When they were first married, they had, now remember, we're talking to a Japanese guy that was in an arranged marriage for 30 years. When they were first married, they had no love for each other. Now they have some love for each other. Some love seems like quite a bit compared to no love. Couples in love marriages typically start out with a lot of love for each other. Years later, it is not surprising that many of them report having less love than they did during their steamy courtship. Some love doesn't seem so great compared to the lot of love that they had for each other earlier. A study in Israel comparing arranged and love marriages found similar results. Those in arranged marriages were found to be as much in love with their partners as couples in love marriages. And that is it. So I'll talk to you next week.